we are ready to get into game. G2 up against NIP, the first game that we're going to be looking at here at the Six Invitational 2024. You know what? I'm going to do a really mean thing. I'm really sorry, guys, but I want a prediction.
You want a prediction?
I want a prediction.
We've not even seen the maps. Are we making you a prediction?
Maps are really
no, just like a blind prediction. If you have to let the spirits of Siege guide you.
I can't do it.
You can't or you don't want to?
No, but I like both of these teams. Obviously, I like G2 because they're from Europe.
Difficult.
And I like NIP because I've spent a lot of time casting Brazil.
And what you said as well,
that's personal bias.
Predictions really dependent on what kind of maps we're going to, because I think G2 have a deeper map pool, so going into a map of the best of 3 map veto, they should have an advantage in that. They can kind of play around that, put NIP on maps that they're maybe not so comfortable on. So I guess regarding that, maybe I might lean towards G2.
Ooh, so you're telling me if I give you guys the full map veto, you would give me a prediction?
Yes.
Okay, deal made. Let's start off with the bans in terms of what we're not going to be looking at when it comes to these. We're not going to be looking at Oregon Border, Labs, or Bank. Anything standing out to you here, Ollie, that you think, wow, that's crazy?
I mean, there's no real surprise there for me inside of that map veto, considering both sides. We've got NIP coming out with the Oregon ban, coming out with the Labs ban. They're maps that they don't really like to play. NIP really like to avoid Labs. G2 on the flip side, they love it, and Border is a little bit more of an unpredictable one for G2.
Clubhouse, though.
Yeah, this is a very curious pick, I would say, from NIP, because we haven't seen them play this map since September. It is not really a low preference map for them, though, because they were willing to bring it out as a decider against SSG for their on-stage game in Atlanta. It's just, we haven't seen it from them. It comes down to very basic stuff. We have seen G2, of course, on this map. It's a bit of a lower preference that they have played in the South Breach on this map. It's just, what are NIP going to bring out on it? Because we haven't seen it from them since September.
When you're talking about the basic stuff, particularly on Clubhouse, we touched upon the fact that G2 on South Beach was not necessarily that good at the basic stuff back then. Yeah. Is that a worrisome sign for you, Ollie?
I think it always goes down into 2 things, right? You can always talk about basics and then hiding things. Fundamentals are something that shouldn't just disappear because you are saving strats for SI. It isn't something, that general team play, that general cohesion, that's something that should be there. And there's maybe a thought that you could say G2 perhaps didn't take South Breach as seriously as they could have done. Maybe didn't have enough time in the lead up prepping up to it for whatever reason, because guess what? It is the off season. Like, these guys have got lives. So you maybe give them off, give them a little bit of a, get them off the hook with that, really.
Would you give him a prediction? Well, give me a prediction.
I think we'll see 3 maps.
Okay.
I'm happy to give that prediction.
All right. Well, we'll see whether or not the cast are going to agree with that one, because we are ready to head into the first game of Six Invitational 2024. G2 up against NIP, casted by our lovely M and Hap.
Thank you very much, Ginny. And yes, we are here. We are back. We are live. Six Invitational has returned once again, but this time in the home of Brazil. That's Hap. I'm Fluke.
It's going to be very exciting to see how these Brazilian teams will do on their home turf. For once, they didn't have to travel half the world. It was everybody else that had to come towards them. Come to Brazil. And as we get started, Clubhouse being the first map. We looked at that.
Let's talk about this.
Yeah,
let's talk about this, because I'm going to, Analyst Desk, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I'm going to open up our beautiful friendship with an argument. I think this is bait. Because it's not that NIP have a lower preference on it. G2 do not play it at Tier 1. Yeah, they played it in South Breach. They had a very poor showing of it at Gamers 8. And then they haven't played it at any of the majors, any of the big performances when it's a high preference map. They've left it open as what is usually their first ban preference at any of the majors they've been at. NIP have fallen for the bait. G2, what are you cooking up here?
Well, that's the thing, because I looked at it and I was a bit like, there must be a reason behind it. There's no way they make a mistake on day 1 in the first map ban phase and leave that open. So there has to be a reason there. G2, they must have kicked something up. And NIP, well, they've always felt a bit comfortable going there. Haven't really played the last 6 months, yeah, but they overall have a really good record over the years. So it's going to be a good start.
Okay, we also are very lucky to be blessed by many of the big brains around us, and it's the beauty of SI. You're surrounded by very cool, very clever people, and you've also got occasionally people like Fresh, who you can go and be like, Fresh, What's your story here? What's your, huh?
I'm saying he's not smart. He's not. We have smart people
He's
and
beautiful.
we have
Goodbye, Tuberau. We'll talk about these bands probably in a second and the sort of spread of things onto Club. But one of the sort of conversations that has apparently gone on behind the scenes around G2, especially when they sort of brought in Uno, was to get themselves re-leveled on defaults. Bring themselves back towards a default game of Siege, because Siege is a game of two halves and two major playstyles at this moment in time. You have the much talked about and aforementioned split theory, and then you also sort of have the old school style of Siege, the defaults, the takes, your approaches from Virtus Pro style takes, and this is a game where you've got NIP that are very good at the classical side of things, and the opposite end of this.
All right, so as we get going, prep face in the meantime on the way. So,
I mean, I'm living for the rumba. I'm living for the rumba that we're vibing around, but now it's business time. And here we go, G2 versus NIP, opening us up on stream A. Now, if it's your first aside, there is 2 streams that are running parallel to each other because there's just so much Siege happening.
yeah, we do have to say though, you will hear Tim.
You will hear Tim
from now on,
and occasionally you might hear us slip through, but you will hear Tim, Ace of Pyrite. We're on the other side. He's in a different continent, and we can still hear each other. Now, when we talk about, and I know I briefly alluded to it before, but I'll go a little bit more in depth. The two styles, the slower one that NIP does is much more set up. They've actually struggled at the new idea of breaking things apart. You'll see them. It's not entirely a confidence thing, but they like to have the full control. This is where things might get shaken up. Look at how Alamau is trying to bite his way into this approach. They shake the tree and see what falls off the back. And when NIP gets shook, sometimes it can entirely take the wheels off an approach.
No, for sure. And I think Clubhouse is one of those maps where defaults and fundamentals are really part of the play. So maybe the slower kind of game style from NIP is actually working out for them here. Usually they have to warm up and really get into a tournament. But having a map like this to start off on might actually be quite beneficial. As Doki gets the very first kill onto Psycho, opens it up and takes down the IQ.
This is entirely it. So, Split Theory, the other end that you'll hear broken down, picked up and reevaluated every single time. A very layman's approach is look for opportunities all across the map and see what you can take. G2 love it. They thrive in it. They try to be the sort of propagation of the motion of it in the meta as well. They want to be the first step. Doki cannot decide if he wants to be in front of or behind this mirror window, or because of this. Hey, who did Doki kill in this position? It was an IQ.
I was actually going to be mentioning that. He's trying to stop those drones from finding those cameras as well. And with the IQ gone now, the information game heavily in favor of G2, and that allows them to just pop up every now and then, take those fights and try and put themselves in the advantage right here. Now they're looking to open up on the hatch, but there it is. The claws are coming out and Benja's making sure that hatch stays shut. Going to try and do it via, you know, the soft flooring next to it. It is possible with Exkyros. You just need to be really precise.
And that's not what he's trying to do.
Yeah, he's trying to get the claw.
He's getting the claw. He's baiting the claw there as Doki baits another player. That's twice. He is using that single camera on that stairs and biting in. An unfun fact, can't find the third as he's finally put down by Cons, but 40 seconds left here. And this is when we highlight this slower approach, a bit of a panic shot. And the unfun fact is NIP, both majors they've been at, they've lost their opening game. They struggle to get into tournaments. They've struggled to get into the first round of this so far, and it's a much longer series. A best of 3 they'll be playing through. We have a lot of Siege in this showdown ahead of us, but G2, they're making sure they're just as uncomfortable here on their home territory as they've been in NA and in EU.
With the Deagle to finish it off there for Virtue, a bit of a style point early on, and I mean, this is something we know from G2. They like to play that mental game. They need to find that momentum and really bring that going. And, you know, if you have such a dominant first round, why not try and go for a bit of style points in the end there? Important to mention, though, the camera gameplay that we saw from G2 early, those Valkyrie cams, absolutely crucial. Taking down the IQ before they could actually take out any of those cameras, even more so, because then they can just keep bouncing on the information they get and basically always have a bit of a leg up. Doki. There's no drones ahead of them either. And Benja finding this kill, by the way, it was such a shame because he just walks in, he checks it, and at the moment he registers the player, flicks off, and then realizes, there was someone out there. That
I mean,
a small
the
mistake.
IQ going down with the first sort of bait there against the Valkyrie that's playing aggressive, it doesn't spell great. Then you get the Hibana swinging with 40 seconds left. Missing the X-Kairos is the sign of, we're under a bit more pressure than we wanted to be at this. It's club. Yes, it's default. It can be slow. It works into the favor of those teams. However, taking into consideration the sort of nerves of coming into this major, taking into consideration how they've often started these majors, it hasn't always been their best, has been their first day. They like to boil, they like to cook, they like to be a sort of slow burn into the blaze by the end of it. And DC is as fun as it can sort of be as a comparison, old style versus new style happening on the oldest style of map. The fact that this even got through, I mean, as I said, for my money, this is G2's to prove. There goes Uno, the proof is knocked out.
A different kind of game that we're seeing for the second round. Of course, we're no longer in the basement. It takes a lot of time to set yourself up for it. We're now finding ourselves upstairs. And I feel that if you're looking at the setup here, we have two architects coming in Mira and Azami, two very prevalent operators that we're still seeing to this day, especially Mira, for example, really making it hard on the attacker, trying to slow it down as much as they can. Of course, Subaru has been banned. We promised we'd come back to it later.
We did. I was just about to say I forgot to come back to it later.
Oh, look at Doki.
Doki, what are you doing? Gons is able to punish him this time round. He was obviously very successful with that style of step up to the plate and knock it out of the park in the previous, but this time not quite getting the same momentum behind it. A 5 versus 3. Loads of time here for NIP as they start to look into Logi. Look at Wizard underneath as well. The Capitao can try and cause some destruction and damage. Obviously, since the frag grenades have been changed and pulled away, there's new adaptations on pushes, and that is a very clever one. Look at that, right in the cubby rotation. Forced out by the smoke. Muzi pushes up the main brick stairs, trying to get the angle and the swing on the player. They don't know he's here. There's so much noise. There's the win on the fight, though. Virtue doing all he can. Cons keeps the double up. There's a low health onto the mirror. Minute 10 again. Still loads of time here as Benja bites back across the door.
Have some important rotations though, but the fire now is going to be stopping Benja from stopping this plant from happening as Gonza's getting himself in behind the weight. Is there a rotation downstairs? Yes, there is. Virtue with the C4. The drop comes through. The diffuser's now on the bottom floor though, and that means that Benja can hold on to the main stairs with Pino being down in this 1v1 situation. G2 might still turn it around. Flashbangs are coming through. Cons knows around his position, but he's not able to connect the shots.
Boy wonder Benja was the driving force behind them winning their last SI, and here he is opening up the round with some huge play against Cons, who's fighting in his first ever SI2. Over the sides! And it's Benja that gets the double and the lockout. But these are the kind of rounds you want to see from our lobby in this tournament that will have the highest amount of SI champion hammer holders going head to head.
7 out of the 10 players, was it, have raised this hammer before?
7 out of the 10.
And with that, it is going to be a very heavy matchup to come through. And I was going to say, okay, Uno drops first. Happens. It was a bang to come through. Maybe he was trying to go for a spawn peek. Those things happen. Oh, look at that. Just a kill from Benja onto the highway there. Quickly rotating back. But Doki going aggressive as soon as the wall was open up. He's like, there's no drone. I can try. Missed his shots. After that, G2 finds himself in a, well, poor position. And I have to say, the C4 being tossed up to try and find a diffuser, you lost the gunfight. But what happened? The person with the diffuser is now down on the ground floor.
Down on the ground floor.
What does Benja need to do? Hold the stairs.
They got the down on the other player as well. Obviously, they're sort of playing with the information there. Fantastic round from Benja. And as I said, if you, if you've gotten into Siege throughout the year, if you didn't watch SI last year, Benja was the MVP. Benja was the best player in a tournament where he'd only been with the team. It was about a month and a half as a young prodigy coming into what is a very high-pressure environment, what is a very high-pressure team and sort of organization with a lot of heft behind it. And now you see him start to spark early on, and it makes it very exciting. Pino on the Ying. He might not know how close he is to a potential fight here into Strip, but it's Benja actually that Well, gets caught out by Psycho. Once again, Psycho able to get the entry over the past 2 rounds.
A little bit of damage done towards him, though, and they're still afraid of a potential run out to come through. Now, this is CCTV. This is known as the worst side to defend nowadays. It used to be one of the best, but because it has been so, you know, tested and tried upon by any single team, everybody knows how to attack it nowadays. If you think of a step-by-step plan on how to attack a site, this is the site that comes to your mind in what is probably one of the most default takes you'll ever see. It starts with opening up the ball, starts with then getting that garage, or if you're going from the opposite side of things, you're making sure that you get construction control. And that is maybe what we're seeing a little bit here from the sides of NIP. You see that E1D in the meantime going off whilst drones are setting up for the bedroom side of things, but Doki is out there as well, just took out that drone, so he's going to be trying to put his banner in the works out here.
They're exploring the map, exploring the space, putting pressure as far out as I can. As I said, they will try to. You count the amount of times you can shake NIP's approach. You see if you can make them feel uncomfortable. That's why they're going for these bites, these peaks, these early plays, because NIP, if you let them set up, will demolish whatever you've got on the back line. You've got to make them uncomfortable here on the approach. They're going for the rotate down towards the bottom of Garage. Virtue, he might not just know every angle that's being shot at him right now.
I mean, there's also a lack of heart breach, right? So they really just have to go for this as he jumps down. Again, a bit of an over-aggressive play from G2 after they're down, losing it again. And yes, fire was coming down.
Yeah, I don't think he had a choice.
But it's like you still have so many panels to hide behind. It's like jumping down is basically a guaranteed death at that point.
I think he was sort of like, I can die this way, or I can die this way. But this way I might get a kill. It's throwing yourself out a back window. There's Uno. Oh, if he had stayed crouched, he might have been able to get himself out of there. A very, very quick take back, but look at the time. They have a big man advantage, but there's still 2 players to get rid of inside. Doki is the solace. If they get underneath, there's a lot of soft there. There's the first fight. It goes into the favor of Alamau. 2 versus 3, 15 seconds. The Echo drone is quick swap to it. Wizard into the default plant spot with Doki getting 1 more. He's underneath, rotating his way up towards the top of red. They're going to swing this together, the 2 versus 2, as they get back up, but now it's a 2 versus 1. There's the swing from Doki! And G2, your reigning SI champions, are 3-0 on their opening game.
And that's the second round in a row right now where it was a 5-3 advantage for NIP, which they weren't able to convert into a round win. G2 showing that resilience out there, the ability to come back by team play as well. So well done for them, 3-0 up. And again, you know, we were looking at Clubhouse and we're like, there's a reason why G2 left this open. They expected NIP to pick this if they were going forward. Actually, timeout to be called right now as you see the coach, you know, starting to talk as well. 45 seconds is what they have to try and get things together. And I can only assume that NIP is going to have a discussion right now. We really need to convert these 5v3s.
I mean,
we have a 2-minute advantage.
They need to have more of a discussion. This is their map pick. As I said, this was the sort of, hey, it's G2 going, oops, we've left Clubhouse open. Why have we done this? Why is Clubhouse open? Oops.
Oopsie.
Oops.
Did not expect that to happen.
And, you know, they have a game. And yeah, NIP, it's not a sort of large preference map for them. It's not one of their top-end ones that they throw themselves into. They've had a little bit more success on it. They've picked it a couple times. They've not played it as much, and they've not banned it as much. Whereas, you know, it's sort of a first or a second ban preference. It's something that G2 will always remove. I almost got my predictions of maps entirely right. The only swap was Border. I assumed Border would be NIP's map because G2 would leave it and ban out Club. And lo and behold, here we are.
The opposite. Now, it is a tech pause that we are headed into after the tech. You actually see the officials working.
How'd it work?
You know, just quickly doing out some swaps or some changes that need to be done to get everything going again. It sometimes amazes me how quickly they can, like, you know, change all that stuff, figure out what the issue is. Sometimes you see like entire PC changes and like, that is a good response to Psycho. I don't know if there was a drone on him that realized that, you know, something like that was going on, or
did he know? Oh, he was already aimed towards the spot they expected to play. But this is the sort of meat of it. As you said, you get yourself into a 5 versus 3. you get your and not being able to lock it down is bad. You get it into it when you have a minute on the clock, and you're attacking a sort of default. Whether you have hard breach or not, you can still formulate takes with trades.
I agree, but I'm also going to say if they had hard breach, it would have been a different take, and it would have come in from balcony and from garage whilst having someone on highway, but now there was no hard breach. So what did they have to do? They had to enter from all different kinds of spots, which Alamau could just hold off from that one position and basically stall for a while. So yes, they should be able to transition it. However, because they didn't have hard breach, it was easier for G2 to hold off on it.
Do you know what they did have?
What did they?
A Ying.
Yes.
Do you know what that Ying did?
Not use Candelas.
Nothing. I think that's the sort of sticky position. That's the warm-up time we talk about with NIP as a team is there's plays, there's ideas that if they have that lineup on day 2 or day 3, you'll see them almost bring something a little bit different, a little bit sharper, which is maybe what's the by-the-books run. The core of NIP are hammer holders. 3 of them have been able to get it lofted above their heads a couple years ago, and then they didn't make the following SI. They did not get themselves back on the back-to-back. And now here they are, sort of stepping into the fight with 2 new players that have never touched that hammer before, of Wizard and Cons, and where their entry statistic can be fantastic, they don't really follow it up with a lot of meat a lot of the time.
No, and then that's always that age-old conversation, right? Great if you get the entry, but you need to follow it through. You need to convert it into more and a round win. And that's kind of where you need to play that trading game. You need to, oh, Benja's typing easy on the wall. I don't know if you saw that. There's SMG 11 there. So it seems like they're already figuring out that they've won this game. Is this the famous last word?
This could be a famous last word. I mean, it's a confidence. You look at the spread of the team, but also you look at 2 of those rounds, big clutch bites. One of them by Benja pretty much solely. Then he's the first bodygun in the next round, but Doki and Alamau are able to sort of batten down the hatches and hold on. It's the power of G2's roster, but also it can be the flaw of G2's roster. And it's not that NIP are a team that will be shaken by the mind game. If you haven't watched the documentary that was made around Atlanta and the teams playing through them, it's fantastic. Do give it a watch at some point. But G2 are one of those teams where they say, we are the best at mental warfare, we are the bad guys. And it doesn't always work.
No, sometimes it comes back to bite them a little bit.
Yeah, there's nothing, you know, superhero films are the most popular. People love it when the good guys beat the bad guys.
Yeah.
If you frame yourself as the bad guys, it can give the good guys more energy. Captain America will pick up that hammer and go to town, you know? Spoiler alert.
In this case.
Sorry. Captain...
Or Capitano.
Capitano.
Yeah. Either way, it is top floor clear, working their way down right now. Doki still finds himself in the freezer.
Yeah, he's holding on, and there's a minute 30.
Now, there is an IQ on the board again, and if he uses the Solid Scanner, they should be aware of his position, but as Alamau finds the kill on Tapino, that might actually distract the attention away, as Virtue finds Musi as well through the hatch that was just opened up.
And this just makes Doki's position more powerful. He's sitting, he's waiting. He might have actually been frozen to the spot at this point. Psycho's running around. They've got to try and fill the sort of gaps. You lose your Ying, and I said they didn't use the Candelas that last round. They can't use them this round. If you're going for this hatch drop, if you're going for this pressure, you can't do much of it. Look at how G2, with those 2 bodies, reinforced Church Wall, relocked it back up. That is the sort of attention of, we have the body advantage. Let's make things more awkward and uncomfortable for them to have to try and break through. Let's not give them an A route.
That's indeed, we don't need to use this anymore to get an advantage. Look at the keeper barriers as well, though. On the actual door frames, which means you need crouching underneath if you want to get through or blow it up first. Now, I believe there's at least something coming. Not quite sure if they have. Explosives ready and just waiting. He's going to be striking any moment right now. It's just a question of time as Wizard gets a little bit of damage on Virtue. Doki finds Wizard still up above as Alamau gets a C4 kill onto Psycho. Cons now on the hunt. Will find Doki, so no flawless round for G2.
I mean, Cons has been that sort of force player for the team right now. He's one of only 3 to actually get kills across it. Goes for the drop, not many bullets in the Type 89. Enough to take the head off of a second player, but at this point it's just padding stats on the exit. G2 bounce for their 4th in a row after NIP's tack timeout. This is NIP's map. And if they don't find themselves at least, I would say, 2 rounds 1 if you're feeling fluffy on your defense. But G2, quite a good attacking team when they're on form.
And we have to say, right, Clubhouse is more of a 50-50, especially with CCTV still being around that often.
I mean,
that is one of the sites you really need to have. And they missed it in the first attempt. Bedroom is coming up next, which means that we might see another CCTV as the 6th round, or bar, who knows? You don't know with G2. They always try different kinds of stuff. And I mean, again, aggression coming out from G2 there in the right position.
I love that rotate.
Hatch open up.
The door-to-door, the long corridor door towards the sort of stock rotate as well if you're playing that bite. You could see the mirror was getting the read on who's above stock hatch. Yeah. And as we said, the longer the time goes on, the more invincible Doki becomes and feels because they're not looking anywhere else but, we have to be on the site.
They just didn't know he was there. And that's like, look at that. Sometimes you see these calls coming out. Sorry, despite their major appearance, NIP only played 1 European team since September last year, which they beat.
Yep.
Attackers are moving out to locate.
I mean,
better than
on Cafe. I think that's the sort of thing about NIP is okay. Doki gets the opening there onto Wizard. Dockerby is gone, and Wizard, if you look at their entry statistic from the year, one of the best rated entry players across anything. Can't quite get the balance of bodies, often loses life not long after, but getting that first bite is huge. Talking of huge, he is a big Frenchman with a shield. This is new approach here. They're tired, I think, of playing this sort of push around. However, when you've lost the Dockerby calls, when you've lost the gun behind Monty, they're now down, in a weird way, 2 guns, they're down.
That's it. Like you just have to, walk extended and try and be a nuisance for someone else to actually find those kills. But also, usually Monty's a bit of a crutch. Things are not going the way we want to. We need to be able to shepherd out these players more efficiently, and that should bring that Monty. And Psycho now leading the charge, but there is still players downstairs that NIP need to be aware of.
That's also the change. This is fear. That roster on the right-hand side, you look at that and go, they are a bit terrified because they've also got the Nomad. Muzi, huge player, one of the smartest, quickest brains that we've seen in clutch situations, especially. And he's now on the I've got to watch our backs. It's another gun taken out of the push and the pressure. More time taken away. They're impact tricking and juggling and playing against the break. The flash is over the top to stop the impact. But with all of this utility dumped here onto the first entrance, they just step back. The site is obviously pushed across. They're going to trust the air jabs behind them. You're looking at a Soulless, again, underneath soft floor. We've seen them play that game. Doki, he's gone for the rotate. They were able to get plays against it with C4s from underneath. NIP, the time is so filtered away from them.
There's no more exothermics either. You know what that means? Jacuzzi stays closed. There's a single doorway they can be headed through right now, and that is where all their hopes and dreams will be relying on to try and find this round. Pino playing on highways, trying to find himself with a pick on someone that's on the site that's kind of dislocated themselves, but G2's not really moving, and Psycho walks into a crossfire right now. That's a shield gone, and I believe that might be the diffuser dropped as well as Doki finds Cons. Only Pino and Muzi left now to try and salvage this round. Make that only Muzi. He finds himself outside. He's holding the stairs rotation. Hasn't found any success so far. 30 seconds. Might just let that run out. Use it as another timeout.
What had G2 prepared on Clubhouse? Why have G2 hidden this map from any international major tournament for as long as they have? I mean, they are sort of demonstrating a great performance here against NIP. This is the one team, as I said before, NIP hadn't fought against throughout the group stages, throughout the majors this year. The one team that, to be fair, they haven't played technically as an org versus an org. I think the last time these orgs met, which was obviously very different rosters, was back in Mexico.
It's a long time ago since they've met, indeed. Of course, different rosters.
Very different.
Always
I think there was like 2 players the same.
Yeah. All right.
5-0. 5-0 here. And this is when I guess we'll sort of maybe talk about the format again for your first SI. There's the split of groups. One team from each group will not be progressing into the next stage. The importance of winning your opening game could be the difference of going home or not. Because if you sort of paint it as a picture of, well, if we got 1 win on the first day and this team suffers against everybody else, 1 win could technically secure you. You want more.
Oh, that's true.
You want more to progress. However, G2, current hammer holders, it was an entirely lower bracket run. that got them
Attackers have located
their
the bomb.
invitational win.
And I don't think they want to redo the lower bowl
Oh,
run.
no, terrifying.
They would prefer to do it in the upper.
However, they did say, because they've obviously had 2 performances
10
at the
seconds
2
remaining.
majors this year.
Yeah.
The first major in Copenhagen,
5
they came
seconds
through in
remaining.
stage 2 and struggled. They still got to live stages, but they struggled.
Yeah.
At Atlanta, they had the early games to warm up, and then they were playing better. They were playing tighter. They said themselves that, you know, being on the long road makes you more prepared for all the games ahead. They trust their longevity.
They've changed it up. NIP this time around, they're going to be using Heartbreachers. Again, the opening kill will go to G2, however. But as they actually don't open it up, would have been electrified.
Oh, no.
Or was that? No, but they open up the mirror window and use it like that.
Yep.
And, I mean, some people would say that's a waste of a mirror window,
No.
but it's not, because you have the opportunity to take out, and then yes, there is a little bit of a slip, but no one can walk through, and that walking through, that's the big danger of that wall being opened up.
This is the sort of problem right now, is there's a disconnect between what NIP is doing. Obviously, they lose Psycho at this split. If you've got an Ash, I didn't quite have the full lock on where it happened, but I'm assuming they tried to get themselves in underneath to put pressure under that mirror window. Force them away from it. You can then sort of say, you're not going to play this, we get the breach open. They still went for the roll with the exothermic. They went towards the rappel. I'm not sure if they were trying to get into position to watch and swing, but it was too quick for them. They weren't ready to maybe try and take a bite, take a bit of advantage, because if you see a mirror window on that wall, you know what's going to happen.
Alamau's sixth senses just started tingling there. He's like, I am being watched. Turns around and there's a drone just sitting there. Bino drops in hot though.
Wizard.
To logistics.
Down on the back end, just outside the window itself. They can't quite get in a position to secure it. But Alamau now on the swing round right into Muzi's gunfire. Tricky situation to be in there for Alamau. He wanted to see if he could maybe get a punish on a sprinted player, but he held the angle a little bit longer. There's the Ender Wizard. Benjamaster gets the finish on the player. 3 versus 3. Just over a minute left here. You can hear Echo drones no longer usable, but whirring behind. Uno still with the C4 and some control on towards Garage. Again, vertical play. It is a big component of this. We know the default plant spots. And now, as you can see, they're just trying to find their first lead in here. Pino, he's getting the close wall open. Muzi might go for the rotate as the Kiba barricade. Yep, there it is. Gets the construction back on the window.
Now, Uno in a very important spot here with that mirror window. They just try to take it out with the Exkyros. Pino, quick jump in, quick back out again. But those Exkyros have been taken care of. And as long as Virtue plays below, there's also no pressure coming in from the red stairs. So that is definitely something they're trying to do. But Virtue gets taken down. And now an advantage here for NIP. They're trying to take out the actual staircase player here. C4 comes in. Will actually get the kill before the gunfight comes through. Muzi up to the garage stairs as Pino will find the kill into red.
Pino gets onto Uno. Muzi has gone down. It's a 1 versus 1, and Benja's been in this situation before. How did it end? With a Benja round. How did it end? With a Benja round and a G2 half. 6 in a row on NIP's opening map, and things are looking very shaky for the home crowd team.
For a second, it felt like they, you know, okay, realized.
It felt like Muzi.
It felt like Muzi had it covered there. I mean, you know, the operator selection, Heartbreachers there. Shows you, okay, they want to go for a default. The mirror window out there really threw the spanner in the works, really made sure that, okay, well, I mean, we're going to try, but we can't really guarantee that this wall will be opened up. And thus the mirror window pops, they shoot out the exothermic, and boom, wall stays shut. Have to go for plan B. And Muzi gets 2 great kills. Again, right call from Alamau to try and go for a refrag in that situation. A lot of these run-outs that we see early on can be in the entries.
There it was. As I said, you know, what Alamau was doing there was hoping, okay, they got that kill. Maybe they'll try and move on to the pickup. There, Benja with the long watch. And the longer watch swung around close, took the fight, put the pressure onto them.
Fucking go, Benja!
Sorry, you put a Scotsman on a camera, you know what you're going to get.
5 seconds to go.
Right, we're starting off in the bedroom here.
6-0. There was a little bit of a change of the roster here. Before we went through, there was a Ying, there was some Candelas, the Ash as well. It seems like they've gone for something where they're not going to pull the pace back a little, but try and drive some control in. We have a stretch across the map. That's probably the lead in. Realizing just where the NIP players are on the top floor, Muzi especially, and saying, well, instead of trying to put the pressure down to the site and against those hatches, which are going to be kited anyway, he's on the board, Thatcher isn't. We can maybe do this, cut away across, force the players down on a rotate, make things awkward for them, and then just get the kill onto one of the 2 stair sets.
Trying to play this on the vertical angle. Seems like they're unaware. Spots out a player, gets the down onto Doki. Not quite to confirm it until the shotgun blast comes through. And now Benja's just looking up like, okay, there's someone there. That's a shame that we lost Doki out there. But I mean, luckily there's 6 more rounds if this one goes south to still cover it off. And that's this round still in place. So Virtue finding Muzi is going to be equaling the score pretty quickly here.
Well, the first body gone, and I guess maybe I gave too much credit towards the idea of knowing where they were, but look at Benja. He's about to come down these main stairs, and Wizard goes down because of it. They didn't quite have the camera on the watch. There's the fight all the way. It's a hell of an angle, double down, and Benja, I said he had a huge performance at a previous SI. He's feeling a little bit supersonic. The 2 dropped, caught out and rocked.
Attackers have located
There's not much Benja can do at this point to battle against it. Alamau's about to be rounded upon on the back end of CC. He's watching for this though and wins out the fight against Pino on the 2nd story. Benja's still holding onto the main stairs itself, doubles down. A 2 versus 2. However, all of the structure of site is still in place. They're going for the pick-up sticks and rotate round.
They know that Diffuser is down in dirt. They need to try and find cons and maybe get like a 2nd player on it. So what we could see is maybe one pushing in from blue, holding the walk out there, and Alamau, as he drones himself, needs to get off quickly. He's both on 1 HP right now. A single shot is enough to kill either of them. The flashbang comes in and the rotate out as well from Cons, who drops eventually, and that means the Diffuser can now be recovered by the side of G2, with Benja now being able to support on Psycho as well.
Psycho needs to hold on here. A huge historied player caught and blinded in the middle, gets Benja and pops round to see if he can try and get Alamau down. As you said, a sliver of health. 30 seconds, all the pings are coming through. The blind as well. They hit the rotate just in time and get themselves off towards the side of blue. Alamau, he's going to see if he can stick it behind the bomb chassis. He might not know about the rotate. There it is. The swing of the impact. He's not seen him slip through on towards blue. Oh, maybe he's just got the read spraying against everything and hoping for the catch. There's the ping on the player. There's Alamau trying to get it on the back of the hot. He baits the plant, but it is Psycho! Huge experience. He's held these stages. He's held the trophy, and he's held Alamau at bay and G2 1 round. But there's still another 5 if they want to try and keep this map.
The amount of time Psycho has been full flashed there. I don't know if you count. It was like 3 times. He managed to get like 1 kill as well onto Benja whilst being full flashed. Able to navigate around. And that's experience, by the way. That's just knowing the map in your sleep with your eyes closed. Because he was flashed, he's able to rotate through from one room to the other and still find a fight on the player that's inside blue.
It's like F1 races. It's like you have
they can drive with their eyes
They can drive with their eyes closed. They know the turns. Psycho knows the turns. He knows where he needs to go. And, you know, being in the 1 versus 2 there, being able to get that first lead-in fight onto Benja, keep himself moving as well. There's a do-or-die attitude because, well, what else can there be at this point? They get 1. It was on the first pick site. There are shakier sites. They've still to get through. The double down on electricity here. Both the Bandit, both the Kaid. They want to play a very shut door game. And, on this map, I'm not going to say it's entirely predictable on how to shut it down, but it's very well rehearsed on every side.
I mean, it's just to get 1 on one side and 1 on the other, so you can keep tricking. However, there's a small issue with the emphasis on small. It's Doki on the Maverick.
Yeah.
Just open up and bypass.
I think, A, love the burn on Stokie, but B, this is the thing about Clubhouse, is in all of its history, across all of the metas, it's a multi-hard breach bring sort of map. You always have that pressure. Psycho, they've been in a consistent back and forth with that entry statistic. It's in the positive for them this time. They're still working on the sort of back end before, and there's the Maverick getting the burn through that wall. If you've not seen that before, you take the top and the bottom off, well then it all becomes soft. You can just smash out the middle, which is what Alamau is coming over to do, but you don't want to get caught when you go for the drop as well, because soft walls can be shot through by both teams. You'll be thrilled to know.
It is still a wall, it's just not a bulletproof.
Ooh, do they know if the player on red?
No, they don't know, but they do know about the player that's inside the camp. That might actually be a bit of a bait coming through.
Yeah, if he just swings this without the knowledge on the player onto red, I mean, we've seen a bit of punishment before. They've got the shield, they've got to rotate as well, and this is just to sort of hold them at bay. They could fall in down to the right-hand side. The drone at the bottom, the pressure on the shield. They're watching now for the rotate. The buck over the top, the spray through. The pressure's going to come up the stairs as well, but it's an awkward fight to take. They're sort of hoping they can just get that shut down. They duck as Pino's able to get Doki in the split. Virtue's swing in the corner and gets the Kaid, but doesn't quite get the Backo. It's back and forth, though. A little bit crazy. A 2 versus 2, technically. Pino is in a very dangerous position, so they're not going to be able to get him picked up in time. But once again, with just around a minute left here, you've got a 2 versus 2.
And G2 definitely got the better of that because they had the initial loss as well. So they were down on numbers. They've managed to bring it back to a 2-2. Of course, you'd like to have the advantage, but it's not always going to be possible. And what they need to do now is just try and isolate one of these players. Try and take the fight together so they can push in right afterwards on that final and overwhelm them.
We find ourselves in this interesting situation where you've got the two sort of IGL voices of G2. Obviously, Alamau taking the lead in the push and Uno going for that sort of cool-headed clarity versus the 2 new guns of NIP, the 2 that have sort of come into their first SI here and getting themselves onto the pressure alongside these champions. And they're going to see if they can try and keep the flag waving and keep the pressure onto Club. There's the drop of Alamau on the back end. He gets caught out by the Goo Mine. There's Uno trying to put the pressure onto the windows at the same time. Cannot quite get the lockdown. It's suddenly a 2 versus 1 with not a huge amount of time here. It might just have been a little bit too much structure. The Legion, who is in a very good place in the meta, in their power and their abilities, causing all sorts of problems. NIP, second round.
Now, they were actually aware of Wizard and his position. The drones were spotting him out. However, the Goo Mines being the problem there, because as soon as Alamau wanted to come in from the back, oh, Goo Mine gets alerted. Hey, someone is trying to push me from Logi. And Uno wasn't able to get the catch as soon as they moved past that mattress. And because of that, able to turn it around for NIP. So the Goo Mine's really given away the last-second information that was necessary there.
This is where things get sticky. CCTV, I assume we'll be going to, or Bar Stage. Both of them tricky sites to hold on to. Both of them tricky places to go. CC is where the coin has landed, but you know, although we've seen it not be massively successful here, as you alluded to earlier, as a site, it dropped off in favor a huge amount because of how easy it became to attack, because of how easy it became to put pressure onto it. We're looking at a situation here where it's becoming scrappy outside the site, and then it's a 2 versus 2 towards it with a lot of the structure still standing. Will G2 try and lean in towards breaking the structure here and put some pressure onto something a bit more traditional? You're looking at that lineup on the left, you're thinking, there's a garage take, there's a rafters take, there's some control of potentially the stairs in the back end. And there's, you know, the one swap of the hard breach there, but there's, you assume tin openers in the pocket, at least 2. Yeah, there it is.
I think I want to bring the Hibana to be a bit more flexible, so you can do it from range rather than having to be up against the wall, especially with a mirror window out there.
What are you going for here, Cons?
I'm taking them out.
Just an early opening. Might have actually wanted to go for a fight, but realized as he opened it,
he was looking to it.
it's like, I'm not going to do it because he just backed off.
He was looking to it. Doki, as I said, this is the Ash roll that we didn't quite see the death of before, but you often get them popped in underneath. With that being opened, it changes the game a little. And he's still just trying to get a comfortable watch here. You can see there's a bit of the shuffle around. The whole team is getting the rotate. This is that split theory take where you're sort of probing for the weakness, probing for the holes. The Grim is now going towards that back line, and the Gunner Benjo. Wizards swinging one side of a mirror window. Psycho's holding on to the other. Look at that as an aggressive hold on the angle. They're just sort of making everything uncomfortable to approach this wall.
So we do see 2 players on rafters, we see 2 players around red, and 1 being around cash. Actually just rotated off to be on a flank near the bedroom, but it means like those positions of NRP are quite strong. You cannot just take a single player out because you need to be in a fight with the other person that's backing them up as well at the very same time. So this is where Uno can come in quite Hanley using that fire. You can isolate one of those players, force them to fall back, or push them together with the opposite player as well, together with the Bees. So there's a lot of zoning that we see right now on G2 that might actually allow them to take this fight. This Wizard just burns to death, and that means there's only a single player up right now. The Bees come in again. Now they will know about Musi being on the rafters as well, and it's being forced off as Pino drops by Alamau.
Alamau gets Pino, and as I said, this is a setup that you're going to take these rafters on, and this is a rafters take if I've seen them 2 bodies, but we have seen teams have a 5 versus 3 and lose it before. There's the scrap and the blind, the bite right on to the second story. Cons and Psycho. Only 2 bodies left remaining, and Psycho is feeling a little bit frisky here for the close-range firefight. Do they know about his position? They don't seem to have the immediate read, but now they sure do. The spray from the 2 stories, 56 seconds. He just wants to get the lead in, but Virtue has the back end. Cons with a C4 in pocket. And a great SMG in front of him. He's looking to just hold them off for as long as he can. Find a single fight as the Beast scream up the back end of red. Uno gets it. Virtue gets it. And G2, a little bit of a shake at the second, but they did a huge amount of work, enough to secure themselves the playback through and secure themselves the first map in this series as best of 3. And it was NIP's pick.
It was a very comfortable win for G2, and of course some of the rounds were closer than, you know, they might have seemed if you look at the scoreline now, because we had 2 5v3 situations in favor of NIP. But G2 is showing that tenacity, showing the ability to work back and get together to bring those, you know, rounds where you're on a small disadvantage back into their own favor. And as a result, they find themselves with that map 1 victory, the one that we were thinking of. Why are you picking this, G2?
Why?
You must have been cooking something up.
And that's that sort of split as well, because you look at where we're going next. We're going to Skyscraper. NIP can play a Skyscraper. For some people's books, G2 play the best Skyscraper. When we'll get there? After a quick break, we'll be back.
G2 have secured a dominant win on the first map, on the first game here at Six Invitational 2024 in Sao Paulo. Let's dig in a little bit deeper because coming into this, Ali, we were thinking, all right, club, haven't seen it for a while from NIP. Maybe they got an ace up their sleeve. They might just be blowing us out of the water. But it felt like what we've seen before at other international majors when that first game at the international LAN, and they just quite can't get that mark right.
It's this very slow start, isn't it? You know, you look at that from NIP and you think, ooh, I would have liked a little bit more. I think if you're going to bring a map that you haven't played in a very long time to the table, you're going to want a little bit better than a 7-2.
For sure. It was a very dominant start from G2. Seeing the players' stats on the screen right now as well. These individual performances, I mean, we can talk about, for example...
10-3!
Yeah, that's really, really impressive as well. But one thing I would like to mention as well, if you throw it back to last year's aside, the one that G2 won, don't get a great start on that first game against Koi, I think it was. I think he went 13-4 or something on Villa. He was a really big asset for his team this time around as well.
Certainly in the first couple of defensive rounds, I think that's where G2 really got off to a flying start. Sure, they're starting off on defense. We know that deep down this is likely going to be quite a defender-sided SI. The numbers suggest that that's what we're going to be looking to. Puts more pressure on the attack. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but it means that you've got to be very focused on those attacking rounds. Doki on the opening kill in particular for me in the first couple of rounds was fantastic. Yeah,
and that focus on these defensive rounds as well from G2 was absolutely phenomenal. We were looking at the way that they were just cornering NIP time and time again, and the drones were not really giving them what they wanted to.
I think that they got really hamstrung on those drones. You know, we talk about this. We talk about Two-Brow being an operator that's been introduced. Obviously, Two-Brow doesn't really have much bearing on drones, but what it does do is it removes a ban, and more importantly, it removes a ban then that you can use to exploit other operators on the defense. And what did we see Doki playing a lot of? We saw him play a lot of Solace.
And I think the following effect with that, right, if you have that Solace, if you can kind of make those attackers blind, whereas they don't have the information, you can put so much pressure on them. That's what we saw Doki do. He rotated from like the kitchen hallway to stock to really flank these players and push them in their backs, not knowing what's going on because you're blind and you have no information.
Yeah, it wasn't just the proactivity that we were seeing from G2 as well, it was also NIP every now and then getting close to where they would want to be, but not having a chance to be able to actually play off of that and just start snowballing. Round 2 particularly, and something you wanted to highlight, was really encompassed that very well.
Yeah, round 2 is a really good example of where NIP had decent starts. This is something that they did that I really liked. Wizard used a bullet hole to make sure that he could fire a Capitao bolt up towards the cash stash area around the Logi hatch. So there's a player playing there with that mirror window. They create space for themselves by using this. You see the players moving up the main stairs. They create that player advantage for themselves, get that control over Logi, and you'd say, oh, that's looking great, right, for NIP. They should be able to close the round with this. They've got such a pivotal part of the map. They got that control, they got the advantage, and then they lose these rounds. And that's something that we've seen happening to NIP in this specific game a lot. They create openings, they get the entry. I think Psycho got 2 entries in round 3 and round 4 or something, and they can't close out these rounds. Whereas if you look at G2's attacks, they're doing exactly what we wanted to see from NIP. That Garrett stake that did it in the final round, where they have these players refrag each other on the rafters of Clubhouse, where they're using Grimbees, for example. They're using multiple people looking up at rafters to make sure you don't lose that player advantage. That's how you're going to win out your attacking rounds against a team like NIP.
And when we're looking at NIP, something particular that we said coming into this is like they are usually having these slow starts, not just when it comes to a tournament, but also when it comes to their gameplay, to that mid-round adaptation. And we had high hopes considering that we haven't seen them for a while, Ollie, but it felt like it was the same NIP that we've seen back in Atlanta.
They looked a little bit flat. I'll be honest with you, I think they looked a little bit flat. There was a lot of occasions there where they were losing man count advantages, and you're looking at this and you're seeing G2 play super aggressively. There was a couple of occasions, I think Virtue was one of them, jumping over the garage rafters. You're thinking, what is he doing here? And the round pans out just fine anyway, because NIP throw the man count advantage. There was another round, it was round number 2, in fact, after that play that we saw from the Capitao. There was a little bit of a mirror window drama going on there as well, and you're just thinking, just slow it down a little bit, take a breath. You know, you can clutch these rounds, you can close them out. Often they've got tons of time left on the clock as well, and I just want to see them take those breaths and take that step to slow it down.
Particularly when you're talking about seeing them slow it down, is there anything in particular that you think they can do heading into that next map and that would allow them to actually take that breather? Because we've seen them do the timeouts, we've seen them try and play with this man advantage, but it's not quite hitting the mark.
The good thing for NIP going into Skyscraper, I think, is that it is a really big map, and we know that they like to play in that slow play style where they really hold off a push. I mean, we've seen it in this map as well, right? It takes G2 a proper minute to maybe 2 minutes before they can finally start to do something with the control that they've created for themselves. If you look at Skyscraper, and that also being G2's pick, that allows NIP to pick what side they want to start on, you'd imagine they go for defense, because it's a stronger side right now, and it allows them to play that slow defensive play style that we know NIP does best. That's definitely going to help them. If you talk about the mental aspect as well, being able to come back from this significant loss you've just faced, being able to come back on your defensive half on Skyscraper is going to really bode well for them.
Yeah, I think it also further puts into perspective the fact that this is a map that NIP had picked, so they felt confident. They felt like this is where they could take G2 to the battle. This is where they could take G2 and potentially yoink it away from them, but that wasn't really the case. So if a little bit of a refresher and a reminder when it comes to these map vetoes, the next map that we will be heading on is going to be Skyscraper, but that's then, Ollie, the other side where it's actually G2's map pick.
Yeah, I think that Skyscraper, we look at it and we think it's a map that G2 know very well. It's a map that suits them down to the ground. The attacks can be punishing on Skyscraper. Let's make that clear. It can be a very difficult map to attack into, particularly when you look at how you can sort of abuse some of the operators available on the defense right now. I'm expecting to see a very similar ban lineup here. But G2, they got it together on those attacking rounds. It took them a couple to get one under the belt, but that's not too unusual there. I think the thing that shone for me today was the fundamentals from G2, and that translates whether you're on attack or on defense. The teamwork was fantastic.
That's going to be really important too, because the last time that G2 played this map, they lost against Yotaro, which is Into the Breach Academy's team, that tier 2 team, and their communication didn't seem right, like we said in South Breach. And this time around, it seems like it's going a lot better. We hear these players communicating. It seems like it's looking good.
Not sure if our microphones are picking it up, but you can definitely hear the players behind us. They're excited and ready to go, and so are we, because we're going to be heading on to Skyscraper for the second map of the series with our lovely casters once again, Em and Hap.
Thank you very much, Ginny. And yes, we are here heading into Skyscraper, which for me is a little bit terrifying for anyone to go up against G2 on.
Yeah, G2, you know, I mean, Fresh said it earlier, the best team in the world on Skyscraper. And they've dabbled in it themselves as well a little bit. So
A little bit of a dabbling.
It's going to be a good game that we should be seeing, but we do need to see more coming out from the side of NIP because, I mean, yes, they were able to get opening kills last time. They were able to, you know, get big man advantages, just not able to translate those and convert them into their own victories and rounds on the board. And that's what we need to see from them, because otherwise it's going to be a very one-sided affair. I'm enjoying the music.
I'm loving the music. I'm feeling the vibes. I am living. Yeah, I think this is the thing about this map as well. As they sort of shared, Skyscraper is it's an uncomfortable attack. It is a very long map to get yourself moved around on. It's very shoeboxy. Yeah. It's, you know, it's a lot of tight corners. There's a lot of checking your 90s. There's a lot of sort of movements that have to be slowed down just on the structure of the map itself. So G2 here, if there are any other team, you're looking for sort of 2 attacks. You're looking for a little bit of confidence before you head onto your defense, especially with how NIP struggled on their attacks in the most recent map. That is such a second level of pressure here, because if you get flawless on your attacking half on a map like Club, and then you've got to attack Skyscraper next, that's a sort of alarm bell moment.
Now, Fenrir is being taken out by G2 again. Does this mean we're seeing the Tubby to be removed from NIP? We saw it last time. Yeah, there we go.
Tubby?
Again. Yeah, Tubby. Some people call him that.
Tubby?
Tubberau, yeah, Tubby.
Mean.
No Tubberau.
I just, you know, Tubby is like calling someone like fat.
Oh, no, I didn't know.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's just like an English thing. If you call someone like Tubby, it's like, oh, you're a little bit tubby. It's like, hey, I'm trying to lose weight.
I thought that's chubby.
Tubby, chubby. You know, there's a lot.
Okay, well,
Humans
I thought it just, I read it and I thought, oh, that's cute.
Humans have invented a lot of words to talk about each other.
Well, I'm sorry. I meant Tubberau.
Tubberau. All right. We find ourselves here starting on what is often and what is pretty much a hand lock in the first pick site for teams to defend onto Skyscraper. You can get yourself sort of if you want to wrap your head around this map and how to approach it, the most common way is think of it like top floor clubhouse, where if you're going for, say, a CCTV take, you would do some of the work towards the side, but your main pressure comes across the top floor. You lock in, or actually even a better comparison, Villa, if you remember how that would play. You would sort of get yourself in on top floor, you secure the stair set, so in the top right, you've obviously got house stairs, and the opposite end is the 2 sets towards it. And then you sort of just make sure that you have that protection on a back line. Here, with the lineup we've got, the Blackbeard, the Candelas, and the Finca, we might see something a little bit sharp and tasty.
Quick opening onto the VIP wall there is going to be putting up some pressure onto the side of NIP, who are of course playing out there. Now, the big thing about Skyscraper though is we have that giant divider stopping house from the restaurant side of the map, and you know there's only 2 doorways through there, and usually that's where we see a lot of the strong points to be created by these defensive teams. The question is, will NIP play the same like that, or are they more fluid? Because we already see quite some pressure coming through the side with Candelas coming up right as Doki moves right through the actual barbed wire.
Oh, looks for the fight and wins it, covered by the audio. Benj is able to get one, and as I said, it's going to be short, start, and sharp and sweet. They break their through into their way right into the site itself. Alamau's going to go for the plant behind the hard wall. They have control of the site itself. I said the standard take is on the back end. That's what they were prepared to try and defend against. But here, a post plant. They've got control of the windows of the site. They've got a Blackbeard to put on a window as well. And I mean, this has really been a smash and grab take. Alamau gets the lockdown with, as I said, the Blackbeard in that role. Pino has to try and rotate up a stair set and make all the noise in the world because they left the barbed wire solid. They then have that. As the attackers, the barbed wire makes noise for whoever passes through it. And it's just a very little clever use of their saying, oh, you had this for us? We are leaving it there for you.
And it slows you down as the attacker, not so much as the defense. But what happened?
It's the audio.
It's the audio that's most important, and that's why it gets played. What happened here is, oh, there's 3 people off site.
Smash and grab.
You know what that means? Oh, we're ready anyway. Let's just go. They spot an opportunity. They instantly go for it. And this is some kind of playstyle siege that I haven't really seen as much as I'd like, where, you know, sometimes there is just a lot of roaming going on the opposite side of the map. However, there's only 2 doorways to get back to this side of the map. So what do? See the opportunity to just grab it with 5, and you manage to get yourself in a big advantage out there. So I really like the call that's made by G2 there.
The play, as well as I said, the staircases are the pressure points of this map. The sort of 2-pronged attack there. Well, I say 3-pronged attack because they had the Blackbeard on the window of the site itself, ready to hold off. They then had Benja pushing up the restaurant stairs, the main stairs, and you had black stairs covered by Doki. It was a very, very good play. Stats, 7 of the 10 players in the lobby have lifted the SI hammer. This will be the highest percentage of SI winners in a single lobby throughout potentially the whole tournament.
Yeah.
If these 2 teams meeting each other, this is where champions are made.
Or have been made.
Or have been made.
Taking point. Get behind me.
Now, to don't hear Blackbeard's voice lines often. Benj is going to be playing that. That shield is an advantage, but also a bit of a disadvantage, because as soon as you start swinging, you see that shield before you see the player itself. So you can take that out before you hit the player. Flashbang's coming through. Benja still trying to hold off, and because it is such a tight angle, he's wanting to have that little bit of extra protection to his face.
Doki still on the Ying, still trying to find their way up the back end. There is a very tight angle being held there by Cons, but he doesn't quite get the reward out of it. Instead, he gets the, hey, there's a Monty now.
Yeah.
Has to play against it. There is a bit of a rotation coming underneath, I believe. I'm not quite sure on where the pressure is coming through, but they're trying to offer some support towards Wizard, who is going to be battling himself, and it's Virtue that is forcing the player away. The floor-bound keeper barrier, as he said. It's just making things a bit more protected here for Cons, and as I said, the sweep across, they're not quite able to get the first catch until Doki finds it from that vertical.
Yeah, the keeper barrier allowed Wizard to stay alive a little bit longer as the C4 gets tossed out, not really exploded. Now they'll start to move through. They know about 2 players being out here. Cons gets down from below, and really G2 is just completely annihilating any given single bit from NIP, as it's only up to Muzi now. And he's trying to retake in a part that's not even close towards the side. As soon as they realize site's clear, G2's just going to be exerting themselves, or maybe even now, because Muzi just made himself known.
I mean, Alamau has the kit in sight once again. I mean, you're in a 1 versus 3 post-plant, and they have a Monty. 1 versus 2 post-plant. They still have a Monty. That's going to be the big sort of shake. And as I said, this is a hefty map to go for rotates. There's not too many sort of freewheeling options. It looks a little bit short on paper. And the drop down to try and take the buck first is the very clever read. Muzi, a hugely intelligent player here, knows exactly where to sort of put the pressure on. He's been in this situation plenty of times. He's playing against the Monty that's taking it out, and there's that intelligence. But there's also 18 seconds. He's got to force the fight here, but it's Virtue to win it out. Almost Muzi making, probably, if he pulled that off, a play of the tournament in the opening day.
Yeah, almost managed to clutch it out. Well played by him. And, you know, really those goo mines again coming in there. Elamau having to pull that out because otherwise he just dies if he does nothing. And he gets shot whilst he's pulling it out.
For the context on that, that was an unwinnable situation. Muzi almost won.
Yes, it was. He was a 1v4 situation out there, opposite side of the map. As soon as he managed to get that first kill, that's the plan going down and everybody setting up for it.
And in those 4 players, Blackbeard and Monty.
Yeah, like Monty can block off any doorway, right?
Yeah.
It's
hugely big brain that as a player as well keeps us calm. And if there's anyone left alive, you sort of want them on the board. The ping just came round at the end there, bitterly close. We go to Barbecue. They're going to keep the site rotating. They're going to find themselves in towards the ground floor here, or the first floor if you're American.
10 seconds to go.
I'm not sure what it is in the reference here. I guess I should. I think it's ground. I'm thinking about elevators that I've.
I mean, in Brazil?
Yeah.
Objective.
Do they do ground first like we do in Europe?
Press the things.
Yeah. And press the button.
Yeah. So I assume it's ground.
Now, we open this up by saying, hey, Skyscraper, not that easy to attack. Let's be honest, G2 are making it look quite easy. This is how good they are at the map, though. Less a comment on NIP, I would say, for now, and more a comment on G2's abilities at sort of demonstrating this. Hugely confident for them. Huge map choice for them. And they've sort of put in that performance so far.
Muzi was about to go for a run out there, but wasn't quite able to catch the person to go on their drones just outside. Stokie hops in and out, will be taking care of that goo mine before it does any damage, or any more damage than it does on the initial pop. But it's just to make sure that they can move in right afterwards. And you already see that the complete house side of the map is being systematically cleared out. They know about the player that's in drum, Muzi, falling back again, so more space opens up. That means that they can move in freely there.
Note as well, as I break my way through and they break across, it's taken a minute to get to this point. The site is obviously down below. They're just steadily clearing as much as they can. They're about to maybe be swung on. No, they pulled away from gold, and Doki, he was so concerned about the pressure being put on them because he knows that's how they lost someone in the round before. Pino, not too far away from the fight. Con's even closer. Does he know about Doki? No, is the answer. He's able to get himself a second victory. There's the fight right back through the door, though. Muzi leading an important charge here and making sure that he can grab the reins of NIP and saying it's not over until it's over. There, Pino in this 1 versus 4 situation gets the first, cannot get the next. G2 twice in a row, 3 in a row at the opening game and the opening map and the opening half. And I said NIP don't always have the best time on their first day.
Yeah,
They have the worst.
I was just going to say, if you thought Clubhouse was one-sided, I mean, that still had a little bit of back and forth in the rounds. If it wasn't for the Muzi clutch that we almost saw happen out there, there would be barely any kills. There would be 1 kill, maybe 2.
The worry, Hap.
Yeah.
They still have to attack.
No, that's it. That's why they're going to be a bit slower.
That at this point is sort of, as I said, 2 rounds for a lot of teams on Skyscraper Attack is like good and confident. And as you can see, NIP taking their time out both times. It's an intense reflection of the first map here. 3 rounds lost. Take the time out, see if they can work things together. And I mean, you have to just give it here to G2. They played a great hidden game on Clubhouse. They sort of demonstrated a power there. And now they're sort of playing a strong game. One that they've said, we are a Skyscraper team. Try and fight us here.
Yeah.
And, well...
I do still think it's funny, though, how they struggled against G2.
Well, I mean, this is the thing about... we we always used to say it's maybe an excuse to say, look how they're struggling outside of it, how will they perform inside of it. We've seen teams not have the best time in off-season.
Yeah.
You can talk about it as the other EU team that's playing right now. Wolves haven't had a great time in the off-season. I'm not going to spoil the results. I've heard it's bitterly fought on the other stream as well, whereas G2, they're having a very smooth ride here right now. Are they saving strats? Do we say the special saving strats words?
No, I mean, okay, so we've had a conversation with Fabian about it as well, and he's like, if you're saving strats, that's where your fundamentals show up. That's where your team play needs to be on point, and where's your communication needs to be on point. And even then, I mean, we would expect it. It doesn't happen in most other esports. You should be able to take down a tier 3 team.
Yeah, you should be able to outgun them.
Yeah, so, you know, I mean, again, Siege, a very special game with lots of different factors coming in. It's not just pure gun skill. So maybe it is a bit more like that, but it is still looking good for G2 now with the way that they're stepping up in this first and second map of their tournament.
G2, one of only 3 teams that's been able to get towards the live stages across the majors this year. The other 2 being W7M and FaZe. So they have themselves, I'm not going to say the greatest run, but a pretty good run to come on the back of the win before. Wizard, as I said ages ago, has a great entry statistic to his name. Hasn't quite been able to get it in this tournament as of yet, but with the first being Blackbeard removed and Alamau, they're kind of playing in to the defense this time. Remember last time round, they smashed and grabbed the site? Well, this time they're doing that take I said is sort of the default, and it's being locked down. Virtue does find the fight against it. Doki ready to roll and blind onto the player that's just tucked behind the Kiba. There's the swing round onto one. They can't quite get it. Ring around the rosies. Finally finds the end. There's one more player tucked just towards the back of the bar. Uno's watching for the rotate out. They want to try and force the arm onto Pino. He's not blinded, and Psycho's there for support. Swings on the fancy trophy armor. And Uno has left a little bit watching and waiting with hands. He's hoping the player drifts in, but they are fully aware that this is the cutoff catch.
Everybody's offside again. There's no one offside. I mean, it's that the diffuser dropped outside after they got that first kill, but it's like Virtue's just chilling inside there. He's like, do I go down? Are you going to pick up the diffuser, or should I go grab it, or are we going for kills instead? Because right now, everybody's just on the opposite side of the map. And no one is thinking about coming back either right now.
Look, they're concerned about Valkyrie cameras.
Of course they would be.
She's on the board. As you sort of said, they're trying to piece it together. Now, the setup that we can sort of see from the top here is they're holding onto drum. They're holding onto the long watch. There's the rotate, the foot angle that goes around the back of the drum all the way through towards the terrace on the back end. They had the watch. There's Wizard spraying through on the soft. They had the read on the player, probably audio, which leaves Virtue in this clutch situation. Battling either side of the bomb chassis. There's the 1 versus 1. Fires towards the second. They've rotated their way towards the back end of Geisha and Makeup. How aware of it is Virtue? He is a huge power player. He's against Wizard in this fight. He baits the motion to hard wall. He's going to go for the rotate round onto the soft either side. The swing and the ping, but he cannot get it. Wizard, the magic man, pulls out a trick of his own.
That was way too close for comfort there again, though, for NIP. And they will find themselves around right after the timeout they've done. And surely there was Valkyrie cameras, because you saw that as soon as they repel in with the diffuser. They wait for the right moment and they start banging through that wall. Manage to find that kill again, drop that diffuser. And because of that, they find themselves 3-1 right now. But you mentioned it before, 2 rounds on the attack is already considered sufficient enough. G2 already have 3, and it doesn't look like they're willing to slow down yet for NIP.
All right, NIP, we're breaking through. As I said, you know, and as you guys have seen throughout the year, they can be a very strong team that's just a little bit slow to piece things together. They need to get a fire, and we're starting to get that. This is the hints of a team that has been a little bit, you know, beleaguered, a little bit knocked around. They are, I think, the 4th ranked team from their region. But if you read the wonderful newsletter, the wonderful magazine that Fresh put together, Up the Siege, if you haven't, please do go check it out. I think all of us have retweeted it and sung its praises, but it is so deserved. If you're new to Siege, if you're experienced in Siege, you read through it. He's gone through all the teams, interviewed them, and got such fantastic insight to get you all ready to go for this. Huge shout out for Up the Siege by Fresh.
Yeah.
You will get the taste of a lot of the top teams. They think, you know, LATAM's going to win it. They think Brazil's going to win it.
Yeah.
And then the second, probably Brazil. Oh, and third place, probably Brazil is third favorite as well. The region is in a good spot right now. And this is the predictions from all around the world, from all of the teams and all of the players.
It is always different though when you finally do end up on the event. I mean, it's been a while since we've seen like any official tier 1 play. Meta has shifted as well in the meantime. Not that we're getting to see much of it with Tuberao banned, but it always does change things up a little bit. And it really relies on which team can adapt the best to it. As the Grimbees, as we wanted to dub them earlier, being tossed out to stop any player from the run out to use that.
Now, G2, they're slowing their pace a little bit. I mean, let's be real. They've already secured enough attacks onto this half that they should have. But this map can be slow. This map can be measured and weighted. They don't want to sort of throw themselves in because although it's been successful, how many times is that golden lesson? Look at this, just holding himself either side of the bees, but Benja at this range, at this pace, will get the audio, but the pressure could come from the back of Terrace onto the swing. It's Cons. It gets rid of Virtue, gets rid of the watch before. Wizards behind the Kiba. There's Pino getting one more, and look at this crossfire. Absolutely gorgeous from NIP. All of them had a different 1 versus 1 that they were synced up and ready for in an intricate network. As soon as the first was pulled, suddenly all of them were in a position to swing onto the second and the third. Beautiful read on that defense.
Yeah, for sure, but it was not just like 1v1s in separate positions, but also being ready to support one another.
Oh, it was
you saw it there on the run out. You see one in Terrace, you see one right next to the bar, one gets shot, the other one swings, and that way you can actually find yourself in the advantage in most of those situations. So it looks like we might actually head towards a flawless round here from the side of NIP. As there comes the repel. Uno, not able to get the kill quite yet in the first attempt. He's going down to about 1 HP. And that runouts might soon follow as well by the side of NIP.
I mean, there it is, a flawless from NIP. They just shut it down. This is something that we've sort of been missing from them, is this team play, this interconnected idea of, oh yeah, we know what we're doing, we had the watch. And as I said, it was maze-like. They had the angles in the setup, they had the support, they had themselves ready to be in a position to go against each other, and suddenly things get shut down. G2's approach pulled apart, and they can't quite know what they're doing.
All right, so the crossfire is working out very well together. Can they keep that up for yet another round? Round 3 that they would like to take on the board as well. Barbecue, again, is where we're headed.
Back to Barbecue, the hungriest sight in Siege.
I was just going to say, we once dubbed the hungriest sight in Siege.
I mean, it's how you remember it. 3-2, and G2. There's a fun stat in the top left. The first team to make it back to SI is reigning champions since SSG were able to do it in 2021. So we've had 2 years of teams winning it and then not being there.
Yeah.
Hey, those 2 teams, one of them GSM, one of them
NIP?
NIP. They had won it and they weren't quite able to get it back.
Now, look at Virtue. That's an Amaru. Where's the Garahoot gonna go?
There.
Right there, yes. It's gonna try and put instant pressure towards Dragon. It was really close to actually picking up a little bit of damage onto Muzi out there.
I mean, that is a player who on his face always looks so cool, so calm.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw it in the 1 versus 4 almost clutch before, is same expression. He could be like sort of a train goes past him. He's and he doesn't even look, doesn't even care. Cool guys don't look at explosions.
Or trains. Right.
Or trains. I don't know why that was the first thing. I just think that'd be a really cool visual.
Like
Media
train
team.
whizzing by, yeah.
Media team, can you book a train for the next media day? That would probably be a little bit outside the budget. How much do you think it costs to rent a train?
I don't know how much it costs to rent a train. Do you want one of those modern trains or like the old steam engines?
I think that the faster and more dangerous the train, the cooler the photo.
So you want like the magnet train that's going around in Japan, I
Let's
believe.
get a bullet
like
train
500 kilometers an hour.
Yeah, I think Muzi, if that went right by him, would still stand.
Lay underneath the track.
Talking of cool and connected. Benja, not caught, is actually the C word that gets him there. There's the swing over the top. Virtue does find Psycho in a different engagement as Wizard is slowly forced further and further out of Geisha. He has a bit of a rotate, and Muzi has the support, and Pino as well. Valimau getting a pistol kill. He takes control of Sushi Bar, but he's caught in the middle. And there's a lot of different angles and places he could be swung on here as he finds out. Wins the first fight, though. The close engagement goes into his favor. Has a lot of time, but he's still in a very dangerous position. He needs support. He needs a way to get closer towards Uno, which he's found with a little bit of a do or die hop.
Yeah, I mean, there is that verticality that you still have to worry about, right? And that is what Wizard was looking to play. Now finds himself closer towards the actual staircase as Alamau is looking to find himself away towards the actual bomb site. Still hopping around, though. Not quite sure where it's actually going to be safe to move as Uno gets taken down, rather, by Muzi from above. And again, that verticality is that true danger out here. And Alamau, well, if he, as soon as he starts planting, he's just going to get shot. So he needs to try and find one of them so he can isolate the angles.
I mean, here it is. The 1 versus 2. They have the full vertical control. They're more than close enough to swing onto this engagement as well. There is nowhere that is safe. And he is well aware of it. There's the play on the plant. There's the hope and the hold. Cannot win the engagement. And what a timeout and a team talk that has turned out to be from NIP. The first 3 rounds were tragic. Let's be real. The next 3 were pretty meteoric. I would say the first time today we've seen NIP play like NIP.
Yeah, they've definitely picked it up after that tactical timeout there, and you know, brought it back. Even though, you know, round 4 was still quite close, as you know, the diffuser was about to go down if it wasn't for that Valkyrie camera out there. This round here was quite close as well, but just that verticality that G2 didn't deal with eventually being their downfall. They wanted to go for just a purely horizontal take. Didn't really work out for them. But now they'll be over towards the defense themselves. And we've mentioned this before, it's the favorite side to be on.
It is.
For Skyscraper. Them having 3 rounds already is good news.
I mean, it's great news. It's the best news. Them being the most recent 3 rounds, the even better news. Print the presses. Suddenly they've been able to find their way of playing together because, as you said, their defenses, their holds. I'm super excited to go back and sort of look at the exact positioning because I love the intricacies. I loved how ready it was to rock and roll with the approaches of G2 and sort of, you know, push back against it, counterplay towards it. It's given them a confidence, and you need it before you go into attacking this map, regardless of whether you've come off the back of being clean swept before.
The issue that NIP was facing, though, was the early aggression from G2 on their own attacks when NIP was attacking on the side of Clubhouse. When G2 could just play their game, go aggressive early on and find themselves with those kills, that's when they really started to struggle. So what you see now is you see them watch their drones, watch those windows where usually these kind of jump outs come out from, to see if they can catch any of these G2 players off guard. But it seems like they've slowed it down themselves as well. Like they're not actually trying to go for the earliest peak possible.
Who will get that first break? It's, you know, as I said, the site choice and the site sort of preference is a first lead in. Usually it is towards karaoke side. Instead, here, G2, they opt to pull themselves onto the opposite end. A second site, and still with the solidity that the second story can offer you. But the first break and the first swing might come here towards Alamau. He's holding onto house stairs and VIP as best as he can. The break of the Thatcher, the break onto the walls is going to make his position much trickier now. The support has to come from Dragon, has to come from behind him. But those players, Benja and Alamau, are now very isolated.
Pino is finding himself challenged as well. He opens up the floorings above, instantly being replied on by some of the members of G2 that are just trying to find themselves with some aggression. Now, Virtue has been spotted getting into that position. Not sure if they know exactly where he is. Now they definitely do. Being right behind him. But you know, he is not trying to overstep himself as well.
But what do you do at this position? There's a minute 10. They have the 2 players underneath, but to get to that fight, you've got to take it. So they're just watching it. They're sort of saying, okay, well, you know, we'll try and put this pressure elsewhere and have some awareness. Alamau goes down with the C4. It gets shot out. Nobody loses their life, but time is what is being sort of taken away. Here's the other option. They've rotated around. Virtue's caught on a drone, but he's happy to play against it for a little bit. There's the lockdown. Wizard finally makes some motion. However, 20 seconds has passed. Precious time. They can finally start opening up and forcing Benja out. The plant still has to go down. The kit still has to go down. They've lost his position before, and it's getting kind of dangerous, kind of dicey here with 30 seconds left.
There's still really no control coming through from the side of NIP. They have the bottom floor, but what does that give you? Well, a lot of verticalities you have to worry about currently as Doki is putting down some shots, and it looks like they might want to go from the exhibition wall as well, but it's being held off by Benja right now, playing right behind that bomb chassis. A jump in from Samurai as well must be the saving grace for the side of NIP, but Benja's out there. We'll find the very first spots a player onto the wall as well, which he does take down. You know, with a team kill onto Doki, makes it very chaotic in these last 3 seconds.
I mean, even with all of the take and all of the pressure underneath, the fact that Benja was able to stay where he was in a position to swing onto the Samurai window, he was in a position to swing onto the breach. They had the buck underneath. They knew the full read of Benja's position, and yet, because of all the time that was needed to get rid of Virtue, and then the time that was left, they could not try and push that vertical advantage. They had to get those 2 players underneath, up top, to support the take itself onto the site. Benja's first kill, I believe, was a run out onto the breach as well. There it is, just the swing round onto the side. And here, that position, think how long the buck was working on the back of the table because of Benja. And he never left the room.
I mean, and this is the thing, right? Like, I call it with like 40 seconds left. Like, what real control do they have? Nothing, right? They have downstairs, sure. There is some verticality, also sure. But you need to be on that top floor at the moment that the fuser needs to go down. And when you start losing those members, when you try and make that entry, because there is no other option than making the entry at the time they did, then it really starts to get panicky. You try whatever you can. G2 able to punish that one, well, supremely.
Attackers are moving to defuse.
We find ourselves obviously a bit more back and forth than we were in the previous map. I think NIP still showed some obvious good signs, some growth throughout this series so far. Best of 3s handled very differently, obviously, to best of 1s, which is where they've been able to sort of suffer. So technically, you know, if they do lose their first game, it's only been the 1 map and then they bounce back.
Swapping mags!
There were some great moments there from NIP. The difference could have been 10, 15 seconds on the round, and it could have been theirs to lock in, because even at the end, it was a back and forth spray. It was a back and forth fight. That can be tuned onto. That can be sort of progressed throughout this map and this series. And that can be something where G2 have to be aware of it, because they are playing generally a lot more timid, a lot more sort of close to their chest. There is the stretch onto the other side in this round. They've given themselves a little bit more wiggle room, but that might be something NIP tries to exploit here. Full pressure towards the top of Black Stairs.
For sure, and as the blitz is starting to come through, there is some smokes, some flashbangs, some bees, whatever you can imagine is coming through, and Con's now needing to push through. A player prone on the Black Stairs gets taken down from 2 different directions. A lot of damage onto Psycho as Pino takes down Virtue as well. It seems like NIP have a really good opportunity to get a quick plan done here, and no one from G2 currently in a position where they can find a response, where they can take down set diffuser carrier.
I mean, brilliant, brilliant drive there. As I said, they sort of went full pressure onto the top, and there's Doki getting 1.5 onto Muzi, but saved as Con slides their way through. They suffer the spray on the back, but they can get the revive, and that is the important part of this. Uno does suffer in a different engagement. There's obviously still more than enough players to go for the fight, but it gives Benja a second to step their way in. Holding onto Black Stairs, holding onto the swing. The Blitz suffers a shoulder of damage, but he cannot sit around, because if he does, he will be locked out and locked down. Uno, he's got the crossed angle, he's got the watch, they have a little bit of attention, but as the blinds come through, they're just gonna see if they can try and drone out. 50 seconds, and as I said, 15 seconds was the difference before. When you got 50, they have more than enough to get the lockout. Benja in the 1 versus 4 post-plant finally gets a bite onto the back end and stops some of the bleeding, but when you've got a blitz, they've got window control, they've got underneath. I mean, this is one of those unwinnable situations I talked about before. They've still got shields to watch as well. The utility was left up on the purpose of this, and the purpose is for a piece.
Now, NIP, they had the opportunity to go for a way quicker plant in the exact same spot where they actually put it down before, but there was a bit of doubt. Is the player downstairs? We don't know. Is the players trying to retake? Didn't also know that either.
Disagree. It wasn't doubt. It was very well calculated because they had a player underneath. They had a player at the bottom of black. They knew they had the control there. What they did instead was go and keep their man advantage. They realize and know how much time they have because of how snappy they were. The revive onto the player outside onto the door became priority number one, not the plant itself. Because if they're in that situation, at that point it was a 3 versus 4, and they go for the plant and a player's down, then G2 have that man advantage. They have that body advantage. Instead, play on what they know, push on what they know, keep the blitz close with the play against them. Do not give G2 even a whiff. I think they knew more than you think they might have known.
No, I agree, but I meant on the initial push, they started to push in when the blitz was already finding themselves deep in karaoke. The players of G2 at that point, there's one in karaoke, the other 2 were on the opposite side of the map at that point. So there was an opportunity to plant, but back then they slowed it down, as you said, but mostly to stabilize themselves and not really keep on pushing as they went on.
It's that in the top left. G2, only one of 3 teams to make both major live stages this year. The others are FaZe and W7M. I'll add on to this. They're one of only 2 teams to do that, including SI, with W7M being the other one as FaZe. I do not believe, off the top of my head, made SI live stage.
Wait, who are we talking about?
FaZe? Yeah, they've been live stage at both Atlanta and Copenhagen alongside W7M and alongside G2, but at 6 Invite 2023 if we want to get the full stretch, because not a huge amount of teams were at the live stages. I think they'd...
No, FaZe got knocked out in lower bracket round 1 by
Oh,
G2.
talking about knocked out, there's another team kill. That is a little bit of a shame, but I mean, to be honest, maybe that's just a, hey, G2 will give you a freebie at this point. Venja and Doki both gone as well. You do lose Muzi on this approach. However, with how things have gone so far, with Psycho going for the quick pace, the Candela's on the back of it, the zip inside doesn't quite net Psycho the rest of it, and with the C4 and Virtue, suddenly, the tide has shifted. The round was in a good bit of control from the quick pacey play of NIP and the quick take, and with Virtue just drifting on by, Cons is left with the kit in pocket, with the gun in hand, but not much else other than a lot of time here in the 1 versus 3.
Big difference in how NIP approached this round in the attack compared to how G2 did. G2 wanted to go horizontal, wanted to take that site under control, whereas NIP really focused on getting the top floor. Not that it seems to be working out too much here. Gonna die by the goo mine eventually. And G2, they managed to retake that lead, but it has been way closer this map than it has been on Clubhouse.
I think there as well, NIP, they obviously went for a play and it started very successfully. I'm not sure how much the team kill would have shaken things. You lose 1 player, and as I said, it's not the end of the world, but they seemed a little bit stuck as to what to do after the quick play, after the zip, after getting in and getting the 2 kills. They were sort of like, okay, what now? Maybe Muzi was a drive on that. They're a nook. Yeah, sometimes with the change of grenades, less so. Nowadays, there it is, the pop round, and here's the accident. Just unfortunately caught out. And then inside, above, not really sure what to do. Virtue swings and sweeps on by.
It was a good first kill that we saw though. Like, they knew that G2 was gonna eye up the potential jump out, right? Like, it's like if we show that we're on this balcony, so being able to pick up the first like that, not expecting the second, and thus the team kill coming in at that moment in time, is what it is. It's just small mistakes happen like that, and now they just need to reset themselves and prepare themselves for exhibition, which of course was won by G2 as well back in round 7.
It was, and where I sort of, you know, had questions, or not had questions, had moments that didn't quite work for them, they realized that as well. NIP, they're not going for this box take, they're not going for the pressure underneath, they're sort of saying it didn't quite work for us, so instead we have some of that direct drive, but the Muzi Nomad role gives me the idea of they want to take full top control. They want to just get those doors cemented, whether you do it on sort of black stairs or main stairs, or you pull it 1 level closer. Yeah. You can cement 2 doors and they rotate on towards Geisha or make up it. If they take that option on drum, it gives you a sort of carte blanche there of protection, you know, almost shot on the approach.
I was just going to ask, how hard is G2 going to be defending this? And if they bring the fight outside like that, it's
pretty hard.
It already tells you that they are willing to go in quite hard to make sure not too much ground is lost. Now, they are aware of the fact that there is a Valkyrie camera up on the beams out there. So as soon as they do move in, they will be potentially spotted, or at least they know it's been cleared out as soon as the Valkyrie camera does get destroyed. And that will alert players like Doki, like Alamau, who were playing on this side of the map, that there is indeed trouble coming.
Well, there's trouble, and his name is Doki, and he's able to take care of Psycho. They've lost the IQ, sort of reminiscent of how Doki dropped the IQ of Psycho ages ago. Now they've lost the line as well, and there goes the Ying. Everything is sort of falling apart. As I said, this is exactly the take that they wanted to do. Unfortunately for them, this is exactly the take G2 has set up to rebuff. Swung straight in to a lot of players, ready for the engagements here. And, well, with Muzi and Wizard able to get one apiece, they're trying to put the chase onto the fight itself. The flash is just to force the player back towards Drum. This is the other second story. Alamau can pull it back towards these other choke points and keep the man advantage, which they do.
I think Doki went a bit too aggressive there, maybe around those boxes, right? You missed the first opportunity for the gunfight, leans back in, gets taken out afterwards, you lose Virtue. Suddenly that 5v2 you were in turns into a 3v2. And, you know, there was no pressure even on the side at that point, so you could have just fallen back. If this turns around, that's the moment where it goes wrong. We don't know if that's the case, but that's the moment you would be looking at that point.
Attackers have recovered their
as
diffuser.
Benja is setting himself up on the next choke point, it is Dragon that is slowly but steadily being taken under control by Muzi. He's cutting off the angles with those air jabs to make sure no one's going to be leading back into that room from the defense.
The huge part of this is you have the two players on NIP that are between them 23 kills. They have been huge on this map so far, and Muzi is seeing if he can add a couple more. There's the first. A great take, but he doesn't know about the player on VIP stairs, and he gets caught out. Almost got the catch. It's Alamau with the lockdown of 2 versus 1. 15 seconds here for Wizard to try and make some magic happen once again, but it's the C4 spell that he's not quite learned. And G2 get themselves a little bit of a buffer, a little bit of a dangerous situation here. 6-4. They are 1 round away from securing the first series of SI 2024.
All right, with that, match point to come through, karaoke as well to be brought. Now, this was the initial quick take that we saw be quite successful on the side of NIP. And that means that we do need to see a bit of a change from G2 to make sure that that doesn't happen again, so they're ready for these kind of situations, because it was a pretty good isolation from NIP. Oh, there's one player onto the black stairs. That's the main point we need to take control of. Flashbangs to come in, smokes to block any other line of sight, and they managed to take that under control and just teamroll from there on forward. How is that going to change? Again, great round by G2 there in the last one. Maybe a bit of an over-aggression in the middle part of it, but they still managed to bring it back and salvage that round. Well, not really salvage, but bring it home rather.
10 seconds to insertion.
G2. I mean, what a great start it would be to any campaign, let's be honest. But as I said, if you are unfamiliar with how things sort of work, one team won't be able to make it out of each of the groups.
Yep.
And then based on where you finish in the other remaining 4 spots is where you get filtered through. Some of them get upper, some of them get lower bracket across the board. It is a lot of siege to be played. So this win might not be the difference of whether they get out of groups, but it could be the break on whether they get into the sort of upper bracket position or lower bracket.
No, for sure, and you know, NRP, they have this stat, you called it, they lost their opening games in the previous major.
Oh, yeah.
They're always slow to get going. It might be better to go up against what could be the favorite of the group first.
Yep,
have a tough game against that, it's whatever. Just win against the rest right afterwards.
And obviously, as this is the first game to get locked in, you know that the other teams from this group are going to be very keenly watching this. They'll be preparing. They've got their games in hand as well. It'll be happening in the same place just after this. And there's Alamau taking care of Pino, getting that bite onto the buck. They lose that soft destruction. They lose some of that pressure. And this is where NIP struggle when things change during a round. We talked about it at the very beginning. They are fantastic at their setup and takes. But if things go wrong, if bodies start to fall apart, suddenly it becomes much more reliant on players like Muzi to do things like that. Filthy take across the vertical. Wizard finds Doki as well, and with Alamau getting it even, you feel like Muzi might be about to find the back of this player. He has no idea. And there is a ring around the rosies with a violent end.
NIP to bring it back into their own favor, even though the opening kill was against them. Still some verticality, and Muzi gets taken down as well, so we're back in a 2-on-2. You might wonder, where are those last two players? All the way on the other side of the map. A minute 10 left on the clock. The fight was taking place all around the objective, but Wizard and Cons, they find themselves around the house area, moving their drones into position to find the information to go for an execute.
Last time we had these two players as the last two alive versus, I think it might have been exactly the same two players. No, it was Alamau and Uno in Clubhouse. NIP, Wizard and Cons were able to win it out. Yes, they're on the sort of pressure position. It was a very different angled game, but here the pressure is still hot. You are still 1 round away. Can they try and double down, get themselves a little bit more of that momentum as the new blood, the fresh players onto this team, some of the only ones that aren't holding hammers previously in this lobby. 30 seconds left. And they're slowly just picking their way apart here from the back of drum. Gold is going to get opened up. They just want to sort of tuck in, but the C4 tucks them right back out. And Wizard, a huge map, a huge game so far, pushes the blind, dives right up, but it's a crossfire from G2. It's a 2-0 from G2. And your reigning SI champions open up with a very powerful showing.
This map definitely a lot more difficult for them than Clubhouse is, and NIP brought a pretty decent fight here, especially after that first timeout that we had. Round 3, they have a little bit of a chat, and they managed to, well, bring it back to a bit more of an even game afterwards.
I mean, this is what we've sort of said about it. It is a long, long tournament.
It is.
Siege at SI almost handles different to Siege anywhere else, even at the other majors, because you're not in this best-of-1 situation, especially this time. You are playing days and days of it. You are guaranteed a certain amount of games, a certain amount of opponents, which hasn't always been the case at majors this year, especially. This was NIP's one of their toughest games, and they haven't quite been able to get it. But as you said, it's their first game. It's a game that NIP historically have usually struggled with as their opening day. When they're looking at who else they've got to go up against, I think they'll probably bank G2 for the tough warm-up.
Well, that's it, right? Like, they still have a really good opportunity to find themselves in either second or third place, maybe even first. We don't even know.
We don't know
How the rest of the thing goes down. It's just one game so far. It's not like G2 have just confirmed themselves for first place. But it doesn't mean that it's the end of their group, more so to say. They have the other opponents coming up right now after the warm-up, and that's where they need to get those wins in.
And that's where it makes things sort of difficult moving forward. G2, they've said, we're the reigning champions. We love being the bad guys. We know there's a target on our back. We're going to sort of make sure that everyone's aware of it. And I guess, well, my favorite targets are aimed squarely at the desk as we throw it over and see what they have to talk about the game.
Thank you so much. All right, let's head straight into it. Thank you, Hap and Fluke. We do appreciate it. Yeah, that's right. That's the right caster duo. It's been a long. I don't even want to say it's been a long day because it's been like the first
one best of 3.
Best of 3,
like
and it was a
like,
dominant one. Like, it was actually really dominant. This is not gamer hours, but I want to start off with saying congratulations on the win. A phenomenal performance, because we had a lot of doubts when it came to you guys coming into SI.
Same.
Considering, whoa, mood. All right. When it came to SI, when it came to the performance on South Breach and what that actually would have meant for you guys coming into this. So can you maybe walk us through between that gap, that timeline? What has been the focus of G2?
Well, first of all, you mentioned the South Breach, like, touch on that quickly. Like, that tournament was like a small tournament for us, and we had just came back from a 3-week Christmas break, so like we didn't have any practice, which isn't an excuse, but our focus wasn't there. Like, it shouldn't have been there. Our focus is here. So after that, we kind of reset. Scrums were going well at home. We came to Brazil, and we got a kind of wake-up call. Like, to all the teams here, they're playing so different to what we are used to back home in Europe. So we're like really thankful we had the bootcamp, because they taught us so much things, and it's like it's a different game pretty much. So I think if we didn't have that bootcamp, it would have been maybe a different story today. But yeah, it was really good bootcamp. So well, it was good boot camp in terms of learning things. We didn't play so good, but but yeah, I'm happy with the result today.
Sometimes if you don't play well in a boot camp or a scrim, though, it's not always a bad thing, is it? Because when it transfers to the official,
yeah,
it can change things up.
Exactly.
Something that I noticed today, particularly being stood in here during the last couple of rounds and during those winning moments, of course, at the comms on your team, it was really, really good to hear that there was, usually you're known as a very whooping and a hollering sort of team, and there was time for some celebration. I think Alamau surprised me with how quiet he was today. Obviously,
he told me he's humbled this SI.
Yeah,
that's what he told me.
Can't really speak on that,
yeah,
but
he's humbled.
He definitely was a little bit quieter than he's been previously, certainly in Copenhagen and things like Atlanta. But the comms for me today were the standout. Do you think that sort of extended boot camp has really helped you as a team?
Yeah, I mean, comms-wise, we're all pretty vocal, apart from like maybe Benja and Virtue. Like me, Uno, and Alamau are very, very vocal players, and we're pretty smart players. Like we always have ideas of what we need to do to win the round. So I think the key for us was finding like who can talk and who can't talk type of thing. Because like the comms used to be really cluttered, so too many cooks in the kitchen.
Oh, we've heard those on Twitter.
Yeah, too many cooks in the kitchen. So I think we got that down to the T today. So keep it up for the rest of the tournament.
Something you've mentioned a couple of times is that it was a good boot camp. So when it comes to coming to Brazil and having the boot camp, what exactly makes a boot camp successful or not? I mean, we've seen in your performance, it was clearly successful, but as a player, for you individually, what is the definition of a good boot camp?
I mean, I think, first of all, like, you need to get the good practice in. I think that's a key to every team's success. But, like, for us, we did a lot of, like, team bonding activities. We did a lot of, like, hanging out, like, outside of the game. We went partying, we went all these type of things. So that was pretty fun. And, I mean, it gave us a good mood, like, we weren't stressed. Like,
all right.
So I think that's a big thing, taking the stress out of the game.
You went to Carnival as well?
We didn't go to Carnival because it just started. Okay. So we were tryharding. Thanks. We were tryharding when Carnival started, but before that, yeah, we were crazy. So,
all right, well, thank you so much for that interview. Phenomenal performance for the side of G2. And just for you guys at home, if you want to have a little bit of a recap, let's have a look at how it exactly played out, because it was a 2-0 sweep. And this one particularly 7-4 for the side of G2. Every single one of the players stepping up to the plate. We had Benja, particularly Ollie, during that first game that we've seen today, going 10-3. But then you look at Almau and he goes 11-8, and it's like every single time it's a different player stepping up.
You close your eyes, you spin a spinner, or you point at somebody on the G2 roster, and any single one of them can show up. And that's what we got a taste of today. We only saw him play 2 maps. We didn't really see him play too many rounds. We got a 7-2 and a 7-4. So in the grand scheme of a best of 3, that isn't really as far as it could have ended up going. We could have been sat here talking about a map 3 or still in some sort of overtime here in map number 2. So it was a very quick victory for G2 here. Obviously, to give a little bit of light onto NIP, I think that they did correct some of the problems that they maybe faced over in Clubhouse. They had some fantastic attacking rounds. They did some really good jobs at converting those man count advantages. But overall, the story of the day here is that G2, they're here to play.
I think for NIP, there was a spark of momentum, right? There was a few attacking rounds that they really seemed to have their things down, or defending rounds, and then that little rush take they did on the top of the Black Stars as well, which really seemed like, okay, NIP, they've had that slow start maybe of this series, but they're potentially looking at a comeback here. But those G2 players, as you mentioned, individually, you can just spin a circle and see whoever lands on, they'll be stepping up. And that's what they did today as well. I feel like so many rounds we saw G2 players just get picks or get frags individually, and there was no one there on the side of NIP to be able to refrag them. And they're able to punish these players, these lone wolf players on the side of NIP, and then force that ground and control to themselves.
Yeah. Something really interesting that I also want to talk about is the fact that literally just now at the interview that we had with Doki, I was like, we had a lot of question marks of you guys coming into, and he goes, same. So it feels like G2, although the fact that they showed up with so much confidence, potentially it wasn't even there coming into today.
I think that's the mark of a very mature team.
Yep.
I was speaking to Fox in the green room, and we were saying, we were talking about, teams and saying that they're going to win every game, and I was like, but do you not always think you're going to win every game? Like, you've not got that dog in you, not got that confidence.
The dog in you.
And he was like, well, no, I'm pretty realistic. Like, I have to be realistic going into this. And I think the G2 have come into this very realistic.
Yeah.
They weren't thinking that they're the best in the world. They were just thinking they were going to go there and play their game of Siege. And it wasn't necessarily about overhyping themselves beforehand and giving themselves that pressure. And it's obviously worked out for them here.
I think if you get that confidence, whereas you're like, oh, we're going to win every single game. Doesn't matter who play against, we're going to win it. I mean, yeah, sometimes you're going to say it to like fake that kind of confidence, fake it until you make it. But at that point, I'm not trying to say someone might get delusional, but it will hurt you. And like,
you can say it, it's okay.
Yeah, but like at that point, you're thinking, oh, well, we're going to win this. It's fine. I can play this on like first, second gear. And if you're not doing that, you're potentially risking away games that you really shouldn't be losing.
Yeah, and this one as well, we hyped it up in terms of G2 defending that SI title after a little bit of an oopsie in the South Breach, which was not even a tier 1 tournament. We heard it from Doki himself. There was that Christmas break. They weren't prepped. It's not an excuse. They learned from that mistake. They got a wake-up call when they came to Brazil. But then we were looking at NIP, and that's a team that we highlighted in terms of they also have that SI title under their belt. But let's have a look at the intel plays in terms of how this exactly played out, because I really want to focus on NIP this time around, because I feel like, as you already mentioned it, and we saw glimpses, but every single time that Benja was there, stopping the tracks.
Glimpses indeed of that momentum that we wanted to see from them, because they were a pretty momentum-based team, as you could say. When they pick up rounds, they just really pick up very fast after as well. I just think some individual players really weren't showing up as we wanted it today. I mean, one player that I would like to point out, Wizard, on the very first map, I think he had like 19 and 7 on entries during the Atlanta Major, and he was on a donut for the longest of that game. So these players not really showing up, maybe indicating a slow start. That is very unfortunate, but you're looking to hopefully get that from their future matches.
Yeah, and unfortunately for them, I mean, they still, unfortunately, this is the first loss that they get, and it's kind of what we're used to from NIP when we're looking at Copenhagen, when we're looking at Atlanta. It's like that first matchup on that international stage is always going to be a little slower, but they still have to play GK. They still are going to have to go up against Dark Zero. They're still Fearx, so there are teams within the pool that could potentially cause a bit of an upset. And remember, if you're bottom of the group, you're outie.
It doesn't look great. Obviously, you never want to start off on a loss, but it's very early days. There's a lot of siege left to be played here for NIP, and we want to stress the fact that they're a tournament team. I believe they are a team that get better as the tournament progresses. This is day one, game one. Let's not beat up on them too difficult.
Aww.
Let's see how they bounce back. That's what I'm more interested in now.
Yeah.
You know, they've come here, they've played in the booth, they've got a rub of the green. Now let's see how they respond to not coming away with the result that they wanted.
Yeah, they're in the swing of things, and so are we, because we are going to be heading into the second game of today, and that's going to be Dark Zero up against GK. But first, a little bit of a break, because we also need to get some lunch, so make sure that you also get a lunch, stay hydrated, and we'll be back in just a bit.